What if I said to you that there was a game that combined the intense action of classic beat-em-up series like Streets of Rage and Final Fight, then threw in a dash of ultra-violence and set it in a warped alternate past that never existed? Well, that is exactly what Mother Russia Bleeds is. Le Cartel Studio teamed up with publisher Devolver Digital to create a throwback that reeks of seedy passion thanks to its themes of drug use, addiction, sex and violence. This is all sewn together with a pounding techno soundtrack as you punch your way through the underbelly of Soviet Russia. The end result creates atmospheres similar to other mature games like Manhunt and most obviously due to its graphical style, Hotline Miami. What we get here is a fun, challenging romp through a grimy setting with intentionally ridiculous dialogue and visceral violence. The game follows a band of rough gypsy street fighters that have one of their travelling shows interrupted by a group of mysterious Russian mafia goons who gas and kidnap them. The fighters awake to find themselves inside a scientific facility as unwilling test subjects for an addictive neon substance known as Necro. The group work their way through the facility and across several environments such as a prison, a train level, which by this point is a staple of the genre, a perverted bondage nightclub, and a city riot where you take part in the revolution's revolt. This stage itself is actually quite fun and not something seen before in the beat-em-up genre. From here, the team uncover the corrupt political agendas of the game's antagonists. As the game progresses, the characters suffer increasingly vivid hallucinations due to their addiction to Necro, that sprout over time into full-blown visions of blood and internal organs, eventuating in short sub-levels that pit them against ghostly figures and otherworldly demons. This does mix things up, and I believe that it adds to the theme of the game overall. The dialogue here is balanced, fulfills you with a sense of understanding and purpose, and most enjoyably is rife with cheesy 80s action lines. This to some might seem like badly written dialogue, but I believe that one must take a step back and look at what exactly you are playing to fully appreciate its ridiculousness. The story does borrow elements from 80s body horror films with its graphic depiction of drug use and gore, but its gimmicky nature as such only boosts the game's intent thematically. Visually, the game looks fantastic. The modern pixel art style is vivid and grungy and on par with some of the best looking indie games on the market. Its dirty stylized sprites beam with character as they walk, stand, and fight within the deceivingly deep backgrounds that are individually unique and rich with texture and animation. Whilst the interactivity of these is minimal, you will often find yourself being distracted by some of the more interesting qualities each level contains. Both playable characters and enemy sprites have been designed with obvious care and fully represent what their particular stereotype should be, whether it be the speed and blur of Sergei, the nimble boxer, or the ground-shuddering suplex of Ivan, the heavy hitter. Le Cartel Studios have obviously put their heart and soul into how this game looks. The developer even included a CRT television filter option to give the game an even more authentic retro aesthetic. Layered heavily over the game's numerous crunchy and crisp sound effects is an incredibly dense and heavy techno-synth soundtrack. Thick brooding synth chords and bassy kicks keep the pace of the game always on cue with its gameplay and help set the stage, whether it be the dark impending doom of an upcoming boss or the relentless industrial sounds of the nightclub that breed its seedy atmosphere. This to me is most valuable in the way the game feels. It truly does create a grander scheme than the game actually stands on. The game is broken down into a small handful of modes. Story mode, where the main quest is completed, Arena, where you face waves of enemies to unlock the game's drug boosts, and a boss rush mode, which is as it sounds. Once you've completed the story mode and have the thirst for more of the game's unlockables, you are faced with the insurmountable difficulty of the arena mode. It is deceptively challenging, and I wouldn't suggest doing this alone. The gameplay itself sticks to the standard archetype for most beat-em-ups in that you start by selecting your character based on your preferred stat range, and scroll your way through enemies, obstacles, and bosses, Bosses in this game are all unique in the method of defeating them, and you may need to throw away a few lives before you figure out their soft spot. They can be quite difficult and can be challenging to avoid when it comes to being attacked, which leads to some very cheap deaths. With this being said, their gratuitous execution scenes really fill you with a sense of satisfaction as you land the final blow. The main issue with the character range in this game is, aside from minor changes in speed and their separate fatalities, there isn't any real defining difference between each character, their moveset, and the way they play. This to me is a missed opportunity to really give players the feeling of tangible choice when making their selection. Whether you view this as sticking to the tried and true measure that has worked for the genre since its early days, or consider this a downfall, is a matter of opinion. What I do applaud the designers for is making the decision to remain on the 2.5D plane, as this has only favoured the game greatly. Talking about the characters, each has a basic set of moves, including punch combos, which are the bread and butter of the game, kicks to create some distance that can be alternated into a combo for good measure, a grab button which locks a close by enemy into your grasp, allowing for knees and punches. You can also throw the enemy to the left or right, slam them into the ground, and most interestingly, throw them up in the air and have the capability to kick them away or catch them and drive them into the ground if timed correctly. There is also a dash move to dodge attacks, a sliding kick to bring those pesky off-screen enemies into the fray, and a charge punch move to clear out a small group. The second most brutal method of hand-to-hand combat in this game are the ground and pounds, as at any time an enemy falls to the ground or is air slammed, you can relentlessly beat them until they are dead. Often taking well over 10 or 15 hits, this game really does a good job of making the feel of the fight authentic. And despite its heavy repetition, this is what keeps the player driving onward for more. Weapons are frequent here and range from knives that result in one-hit kills, pipes, bats, katanas that decapitate, guns which can come in handy when dealing with mass crowds, and a personal favourite, the chainsaw, which literally covers the floor in blood and body parts as you dismember your foes. Weapons can often turn the tide of this game either way, and if you aren't careful, you can often find yourself on the receiving end of a clip full of bullets. The game's special move or crowd control move comes in the form of Necro and its potent ability boosts, giving you the ability to punch faster, harder, and most enjoyably engage in one of the fatalities the game contains. As you press the grab button in Necro mode, the camera slows down and zooms in to watch as heads explode, get punched clean off the body, spines shatter, and throats ripped out in a blurry mess of drug-fueled pixels. It's simple in execution, but exhilarating and satisfying in its spectacle. With all this good old arcade action does come a few drawbacks. The game's inconsistent difficulty spikes caused by flooded screens of enemies, one-hit knockdowns from dogs, or being gut-punched by this handsome fellow, only to watch yourself vomit on the floor and have to wait what feels like forever to stand up, generate mass frustration during tense times. This topped with no real clear way of getting out of a struggle other than bashing the buttons when you're down and out of the game's limited Necro, really stunt the game's flow and playability even on the easy setting. This is why I highly suggest playing the game with a friend or two, and thankfully, Mother Russia Bleeds has done multiplayer right. With its up to 4-player co-op drop-in locally and online, it creates for some great challenges with friends, and if you're completely nuts, you can even switch friendly fire on and play on the harder difficulty settings. The replayability here is in the game's core story mode, which has 2 separate endings, and by mastering the arena stages, which get blisteringly difficult later on, you can unlock further ability-enhancing drugs to use at your will. If you are a fan of beat-em-ups and miss the genre as much as I do, this game is most definitely worth your time. Mother Russia Bleeds succeeds in what it intends to do: give us a fresh, darkly tinged take on a classic genre from video games past. And whilst its lacking moveset may bore newer gamers, and its cheap difficulty spikes might make you want to throw the controller, Its authenticity on every front and tongue-in-cheek nature is something that kept me coming back for more every time. To those of you who can take the game for what it is and accept its shortcomings as minor dents in a well-built machine, this is worth a purchase. That's why today I'm going to give Mother Russia Bleeds a final rating of 4 Max Thunders out of 5. For more reviews and pop culture goodness, visit 8bit.net. This has been your boy Dusty, aka the White Baby Shaq, aka the White Barry White. Until next time.